She planned the most beautiful wedding of her career for 6 months, obsessing over every detail, every flower, every song. The invitations arrived on a Thursday in cream and gold embossing. She opened one just to check the quality. That's when she saw her own name listed as the bride. The groom she'd never met, never agreed to marry, was the one man she'd sworn to avoid. The one man who'd been lying to her from the very beginning. If someone deceived you this way but claimed it was for love, would you hear them out or walk away immediately? Let me know in the comments what you would do, because Zeph's decision changed everything. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now and join this family. We bring you stories that make you feel something real every single week, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Though the email came at 2 in the morning. Zephyrine Bodden should have been asleep, but her laptop glowed in the darkness of her studio apartment. Spreadsheets for the Morrison anniversary party still open. Numbers that wouldn't balance no matter how many times she reworked them. Her event planning business, Bodden and Company, was 3 months from bankruptcy. She'd put everything into it after leaving her corporate job 2 years ago, burned through her savings, and maxed out one credit card. Her mother's voice echoed in her head during every quiet moment, that particular tone of disappointment she'd perfected when Zeph told her she was leaving stable employment to chase what she called party planning dreams. The subject line read, "Exclusive opportunity, confidential client." She almost deleted it. Almost. But exclusive meant money, and confidential meant someone who valued discretion, someone who'd pay for it. Her finger hovered over the trackpad before she clicked. "Ms. Bodden, your work on the Chen Martinez wedding has come to our attention. We represent a client seeking an event planner for a high-profile wedding. Budget is unlimited. The timeline is 6 months. Discretion is mandatory and will be compensated accordingly. An initial consultation fee of $10,000 will be wired upon your agreement to meet. Are you available tomorrow at 2 p.m.? No signature, no company name. Just coordinates to a location in the financial district. $10,000 just to show up to a meeting." She read it 3 times, looking for the scam, the catch, the moment where they'd ask for her bank details or social security number. But there was nothing except those coordinates and a response deadline of 6 a.m. Her rent was due in 5 days. She had $800 in her checking account. She typed, "I'll be there," and hit send before she could overthink it. Sleep didn't come. She watched the ceiling fan rotate slowly, counting the turns, trying to calm the anxiety twisting through her chest. At dawn, she checked her bank account from her phone, not expecting anything. The deposit had already cleared. $10,000 with a reference code she didn't recognize. They were serious. She stood in front of her closet at noon, pulling out every professional outfit she owned. The black sheath dress had a small stain near the hem she'd never been able to remove completely. The navy suit was too heavy for late summer. She settled on a cream blouse and charcoal slacks, the outfit she'd worn to pitch the Chen wedding, the one that had apparently caught someone's attention. The coordinates led to a building she'd walked past 100 times, all dark glass and steel, the kind of place where hedge fund managers and corporate lawyers made more in a day than she'd make in a year. Security in the lobby directed her to the 42nd floor without asking her name. They were expecting her. The elevator opened into a private reception area, empty except for a single desk, and a woman who looked like she'd never smiled in her life. "Ms. Bodden, conference room 3. Someone will join you shortly." The conference room had windows overlooking the city, but Zeph barely noticed the view. She was too busy trying to steady her breathing, so it looked like someone who belonged in places like this, who received mysterious job offers and $10,000 consultation fees regularly. The door opened 20 minutes later. He wasn't what she expected. Young, maybe early 30s, dressed simply in dark jeans and a black button-down, no tie. Korean, with sharp features, and eyes that seemed to calculate everything in the room within seconds, including her. He carried himself with the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need expensive clothes or loud gestures. Dangerous, something in her gut whispered. This man is dangerous. Ms. Bodden, thank you for coming. His English was perfect, accentless. I'm Kang Minho. He didn't offer his hand, neither did she. Your email was vague. Intentionally. He sat across from her, no papers, no laptop, or nothing but his complete attention focused in a way that made her skin prickle. The client I represent values privacy above all else. This wedding cannot be public knowledge until the invitations are sent. Who's getting married? That information will be disclosed if you accept the position. I can't plan a wedding without knowing who the couple is, what they want, their style, their story. She kept her voice level even though frustration was building. I don't work blind. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. You'll have access to detailed information about the groom. The bride is more complicated. Complicated how? She hasn't been chosen yet. She stared at him. I'm sorry, what? The groom has specific requirements for his bride. Several candidates are being considered. Your job is to create wedding scenarios that would appeal to each potential bride's taste while maintaining the groom's standards. This was insane. This was the kind of arrangement that belonged in a different century. I don't think I'm the right planner for this. She started to stand, but he spoke again, voice calm, unbothered by her reaction. The total compensation is $500,000, $250,000 upon contract signing. The remainder when the wedding is executed. She sat back down. $500,000. Enough to save her business, pay off her debts, actually take a salary instead of living on ramen and hope. Enough to prove to her mother, to everyone who doubted her, that she'd made the right choice. Why me? The Chen Martinez wedding showed cultural sensitivity, or creativity within traditional frameworks, and flawless execution under budget constraints. These are qualities the client requires. And if I say no, then we'll find someone else, and you'll keep the consultation fee with our gratitude for your time. He stood, smooth and unhurried. You have until tomorrow at noon to decide. If you accept, a contract will be delivered to your address by 6 p.m. tomorrow. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. If you accept this position, you cannot discuss the details with anyone outside of our communication channels. Not family, not friends, not other vendors. Confidentiality isn't negotiable. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in that conference room with a view of the city and a choice that felt like standing at a cliff's edge. She should have walked away. Every instinct she'd developed growing up in Houston with a mother who taught her to spot trouble before it spotted her. Every lesson she'd learned building a business in an industry that could be ruthless. Everything told her this was wrong. But she thought about her eviction notice, the calls from creditors she'd stopped answering, the business she'd built from nothing, watching it crumble despite working 16-hour days. She took the job. The contract arrived exactly at 6 p.m. the next day, delivered by courier to her apartment door. It was thorough, professionally drafted, and included the wire transfer details for the first payment. She read every word twice, looking for the trap. The terms were straightforward. 6 months to plan and execute a wedding for an undisclosed client, complete confidentiality, and compensation as discussed. There was a clause about termination, clean on both sides with 30 days' notice, though she'd have to return any unearned portion of the advance. She signed it. The money hit her account the next morning. $250,000. She sat on her apartment floor and cried, something she hadn't let herself do in months. Then she paid her rent, her creditors, her overdue utility bills. She bought groceries without checking prices. She replaced her laptop that had been dying for a year. Small things that felt enormous. The first communication came through an encrypted messaging app she had to download. Instructions, not requests. Begin with venue research. Parameters. Within 2 hours of the city, capacity for 200 guests, available for a Saturday in March, and provide options by Friday. No greeting, no pleasantries. She didn't even know who she was messaging with. She threw herself into work the way she always did, letting research consume her. She visited 17 venues in 3 days, taking photos, gathering pricing, building presentations. She curated a list of 8 perfect options, each with different aesthetics and advantages. The response came within an hour of her submission. Excellent work. Narrow to 3. Schedule site visits for next week. You'll be accompanied. The site visits were surreal. Minho showed up for each one in different vehicles, always alone, always dressed casually, in ways that somehow made him more intimidating rather than less. He asked questions that seemed odd for someone planning a wedding. "Oh, does this room make you feel peaceful or excited? If you could only remember one moment from an event here, what would you want it to be? What music would you want to hear in this space?" She answered professionally, giving options, explaining how different elements could create different emotional experiences. He listened to everything, watched her more than the venues, took no notes, but seemed to remember every detail. "You love this," he said during the 3rd visit, standing in a converted barn with exposed beams and chandeliers made from antique bottles. It wasn't a question. "I love creating moments people remember forever. Days that matter." She ran her hand along a wooden table that could seat 40. "Everyone deserves to feel like the world stopped spinning just for them, even if it's only for a few hours. Even if the marriage is arranged, even if there's no love story." She looked at him directly. "Especially then. Maybe the wedding can be the beginning of the story instead of the celebration of one that already exists." Something shifted in his expression, gone too quickly to interpret. "This venue," he said. "This is the one." The work intensified after that. She received messages at all hours with questions that felt increasingly personal. "What flowers remind you of home? What's a song that makes you cry? If you could wear any color on the most important day of your life, what would you choose?" She answered everything, assuming these were questions being relayed from the mysterious groom to help narrow down which potential bride he'd choose. No, it didn't occur to her to question why she was being asked instead of the actual candidates. Minho started appearing at her office, a tiny renovated space above a coffee shop that she rented month to month. He'd arrive without warning, usually in the evening when the coffee shop below had closed and the building was quiet. "I was in the area," he'd say, though they both knew it was a lie. Her office wasn't near anything except a residential neighborhood and a bodega that sold the best plantains in the city. They'd review wedding details, discuss options for catering, debate the merits of string quartets versus jazz trios. The conversations would drift, becoming about other things. He asked about her life, her family, how she'd gotten into event planning. "I used to reorganize my mother's dinner parties when I was 8, she told him one night, both of them surrounded by fabric swatches and menu samples. She'd plan everything perfectly, and I'd sneak in before guests arrived and move things around. Better flow, better color combinations. She'd be furious, but the guests always complimented her taste." "She didn't support your career choice." Another non-question, like he could read the subtext. "She wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor, something stable and respectable. Event planning felt frivolous to her." Zeph shrugged like it didn't still ache. "She wasn't wrong to worry. This industry is brutal. But you did it anyway. I had to know if I could, if I was brave enough to bet on myself." She met his eyes. "Turns out I'm brave and bad at math. A dangerous combination." He almost smiled. Almost. "You're better at this than you think. You second-guess yourself too much. And you're very confident for someone I know nothing about." She leaned back in her chair. "I've been working for you for 2 months, and I don't even know what you do besides play messenger for mysterious grooms. I handle problems." "What kind of problems?" The kind people pay to make disappear. He said it casually, like he was describing accounting work. A chill went through her. That's vague and slightly terrifying. It's honest. He stood, gathering his jacket. You should lock your office door when you're here alone at night. This neighborhood isn't as safe as you think. Then he left, and she sat in the silence, wondering what kind of man she'd actually agreed to work for. She started researching him that night. Kang Min-ho didn't have much of a digital footprint, which itself was suspicious. There were a few photos from charity events, always in the background, never the focus. A mention in a business journal about a consulting firm he owned. No details about what they consulted on. Then she found it, buried in a 3-year-old news article about organized crime connections in the city's financial district. Sources suggest the Kang family has transitioned from traditional organized crime into legitimate business ventures, though investigators believe they maintain connections to underground networks. Kang Min-ho, current head of Kang Consulting, declined to comment. She slammed her laptop shut. She was planning a wedding for the Mafia. No. She was planning a wedding for someone connected to organized crime, which was different. Maybe. Possibly. The article said they were legitimate now. Legitimate could mean anything. Legitimate could be true. She didn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about the money in her account, already spent on debts and bills. She thought about her business, finally stable. She thought about the contract she'd signed with the termination clause that would let her walk away. She thought about Min-ho asking her what flowers reminded her of home, the way he listened when she talked about her dreams, how he'd told her she was better at her job than she believed. At 3 a.m, she admitted to herself that the research wasn't just about fear. It was about the uncomfortable realization that she looked forward to his visits, and that she noticed details like the way he took his coffee and the small scar near his left eye. That somewhere in the past 2 months, this job had become more than just a paycheck, which was exactly the kind of thinking that destroyed smart women. She decided to confront him, demand real answers, set boundaries. He showed up at her office the next evening like he'd sensed her decision. We need to talk, she said before he could sit down. All right. I know who you are, what your family is. He didn't deny it, didn't look surprised. And I need to know what I'm actually involved in. Is this wedding even legal? Am I planning some kind of alliance marriage between crime families? Because I won't be part of something that hurts people. The wedding is completely legal. No one is being forced into anything they don't choose. He sat on the edge of her desk, closer than he usually stood. My family's past is complicated. Our present is legitimate. I can't change what we were, but I can control what we're becoming. That's not really an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. His voice dropped lower. But I can promise you that nothing about this job will put you in legal danger. You're planning a wedding, nothing more. Then why all the secrecy? Why the encrypted messages and the vague answers? Because privacy is the only luxury I have left. He looked tired suddenly, the carefully controlled expression slipping just slightly. Everything in my life is scrutinized, investigated, and used against me. This wedding, this one thing, but I wanted it to be different. This matters to you. She tried to reconcile this confession with the detached messenger persona he usually maintained. It's not just business. No, it's not just business. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things neither of them would say. She should have stepped back, maintained professional distance. Instead, she heard herself ask the question she'd been avoiding. Who is she? The bride you're helping someone choose? His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. Someone who deserves better than secrets and half-truths. Someone who should have a choice in her own future. He stood, breaking whatever moment had formed. I should go. Min-ho. He stopped at the door. I'm staying on the job, but no more lies between us. If I ask you something directly, I need real answers. All right. Are you dangerous? A pause, long enough that she felt her pulse in her throat. Yes, he said quietly. But not to you. Never to you. After he left, she sat in her office until the coffee shop below opened for the morning shift, trying to convince herself that his answer should have scared her more than it did. The weeks blurred together after that. They fell into a rhythm, meeting regularly to finalize details. The wedding was taking shape, becoming real. She'd designed something beautiful, pulling from all those personal questions she'd answered. Magnolias and jasmine, because they reminded her of her grandmother's garden. Deep emerald green and gold, because those colors felt regal and warm simultaneously, while a string quartet playing a mix of classical and contemporary R&B arrangements, because tradition and innovation could coexist. She loved every element of this wedding in a way she'd never loved a project before. The bride is lucky, she told Minho during one of their evening meetings. Whoever she is, this day is going to be perfect. He looked at her strangely. You really don't know? Don't know what? Nothing. Tell me about the cake testing you have scheduled. These moments happened more frequently, times when he'd say something that felt significant, and she couldn't grasp the meaning. Times when she'd catch him watching her, with an expression that made her heart race, and her logic scream warnings. They were reviewing seating charts on a Tuesday night, when her hand brushed his, reaching for the same paper. The contact lasted half a second, but she pulled back like she'd been burned. Sorry. Don't be. He didn't move his hand. Zeph. He never used her nickname, always Ms. Bodden, or her full name, maintaining that professional barrier. This wedding, this job, it's made my life complicated in ways I didn't anticipate. I know the feeling. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. If circumstances were different, if I were different, I'd ask you to dinner. Somewhere nice where we'd talk about anything except weddings and business. I'd want to know everything about you that has nothing to do with work. Her chest tightened. But circumstances aren't different. No, I'm still who I am, and you're still planning a wedding for a client you've never met. He finally looked away. I shouldn't have said anything. Minho, wait. But he was already gathering his things, already putting that controlled mask back in place. I'll email you about the final venue walkthrough. Have a good night, Ms. Bodden. The formality stung worse than if he'd yelled. She went home and poured a glass of wine she didn't drink, sitting on her couch in the dark. This was exactly what she'd feared, the complication she'd seen coming from the moment she took this job. She had feelings for someone she barely knew, someone connected to a world she didn't understand, someone who was helping arrange another woman's wedding. The logical choice was clear. Finish the job, take the money, never see him again. But logic had nothing to do with the way her heart constricted at the thought. She threw herself into the final preparations, communicating mostly through the encrypted app, and keeping their interactions brief and professional. If Minho noticed the distance she was creating, he didn't comment. His messages remained efficient and impersonal. The invitations arrived at her office on a Thursday afternoon, delivered by the same courier service that had brought her contract. Cream cardstock with gold embossing, exactly as she'd designed. There was a note attached. Please review for any errors before they're mailed. We need your approval by tomorrow. She opened one carefully, admiring the craftsmanship. The calligraphy was flawless, the paper quality exactly right. Her eyes scanned the text, professional habit checking every word. Mr. Kang Minho requests the honor of your presence at his marriage to Ms. Zephyrine Bodden. She read it again. Then again, her hand started shaking. This wasn't possible. This was a mistake, a misprint. Someone had confused files or templates or something, because this could not be real. She grabbed her phone, pulled up the encrypted app, typed with fingers that wouldn't stay steady. There's an error in the invitations. Major error. Call me immediately. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. No error. Everything is exactly as requested. This says I'm the bride. I'm the planner. You're both. She couldn't breathe. The room tilted sideways. Explain. Right now. Her phone rang. An actual call. Minho's number that she'd saved months ago, but he'd never used to contact her directly. What did you do? She didn't let him speak first. What the hell is this? I need you to let me explain in person. You need me to, she laughed, sharp and humorless. You let me plan my own wedding for 6 months without telling me. You lied about everything. I never lied. I was careful with the truth, but I never directly lied to you. Semantics. You manipulated me. You used me. You made me complicit in some kind of elaborate scheme, and for what? You don't even know me. This is insane. I know you better than you think. His voice was calm, maddeningly calm. I know you reorganize spaces when you're anxious. I know you listen to Nina Simone when you work late. I know you're afraid you're not good enough, even though you're extraordinary at what you do. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and not enough cream. I know. You know things you manipulated me into telling you while I thought I was doing my job. Anger was better than the hurt threatening to crack her open. Oh, did you enjoy it? Watching me plan this perfect wedding, having no idea it was supposed to be mine? Was it funny? No. It was the only way I could think of to spend time with you, without the weight of everything else. Without you seeing the family, the history, the complications and running before I had a chance. So you lied. So I created a space where we could exist without all of that between us. He paused. I'm coming over. We need to have this conversation face to face. Don't you dare. I don't want to see you. Zeph, please. She hung up. Then she grabbed the box of invitations and threw it across her office, watching 200 perfect lies scatter across the floor. He built an entire fake wedding just to get close to her. Some call it romantic, others call it manipulation. What would you do if you discovered someone you had feelings for had been deceiving you for months, even with good intentions? Would you hear them out or cut them off completely? Comment your honest answer, because Zeph's next decision changes both their lives. She sat among the scattered invitations for an hour, maybe more, trying to make sense of the impossible. Every question she'd answered, every preference she'd given, had all been for her own wedding. The flowers, the music, the colors, the venue she'd fallen in love with. Minho had been building a trap disguised as a dream, and she'd walked into it willingly, enthusiastically even. Her phone rang 4 more times. She ignored it. A text came through. I'm outside your office. I'll wait as long as it takes. She looked out the window. His car was parked across the street, a black and expensive and completely out of place in this neighborhood. She could see his silhouette in the driver's seat, motionless, stubborn man. She should call the police. She should activate the termination clause in her contract and be done with this entire nightmare. She should do 1,000 things that made sense. Instead, she walked downstairs and crossed the street. He got out of the car when he saw her coming, hands in his pockets, looking less composed than she'd ever seen him. Good. He should be uncomfortable. He should feel a fraction of the chaos currently shredding her ability to think straight. You have 10 minutes, she said. Talk. Not here. Come with me, somewhere we can actually speak privately. So you can kidnap me? No, thank you. Zeph, he sounded tired, genuinely tired. If I wanted to hurt you or force you into anything, I've had 6 months of opportunities. I'm asking you to listen, that's all. Then you can make whatever decision you want, and I'll respect it. Your respect means nothing to me right now. I know. He opened the passenger door anyway. 10 minutes. I'll take you anywhere you want to go and bring you back. You have my word. His word. The word of a man who'd orchestrated an elaborate deception. But something in his expression, the careful way he was holding himself, like he was afraid she'd shatter, made her get in the car. They drove in silence through the city, heading toward the waterfront. He parked near a pier that was mostly empty this time of evening, just a few people walking dogs and a couple taking photos near the railing. "I saw you 8 months ago," he said, still gripping the steering wheel even though the engine was off. "At the Chen Martinez wedding, you were fixing a centerpiece that had tipped over, completely focused, didn't notice anyone watching. Then the bride started crying because she was overwhelmed, and you took her aside, calmed her down, made her laugh. You had this way of making everything feel manageable, like you could hold the whole event together through sheer force of will and kindness." Zeph remembered that wedding, remembered the tipped centerpiece and Maria's panic attack. She didn't remember seeing Minho. "I asked who you were, found out you were the planner, that you'd built your business from nothing, that you were drowning in debt, but still gave your clients everything they deserved." He finally looked at her. "I wanted to meet you, but I knew what would happen. Thought you'd Google me, find the articles about my family, and that would be the end of it before it started. So you manipulated me instead. So I created a scenario where you could get to know me without the baggage, where I could get to know you without you performing or hiding behind professionalism because you were scared. I had a right to know what I was agreeing to. You're right. You did." He turned in his seat to face her fully. "My family has expectations. I'm expected to marry someone they approve of, someone who understands the business, someone from the right background. I've refused every arrangement they've tried to make for the past 5 years. They were getting desperate, threatening to cut me off, to remove me from the family business. And you thought tricking me was the solution? I thought if I could show them I was serious about someone extraordinary who could handle our world, they'd back off. But more than that," his voice dropped lower. "I wanted to know if what I felt watching you at that wedding was real, if you were as remarkable as you seemed. You don't know me. You know the version of me that shows up to work. I know you bite your bottom lip when you're concentrating. I know you're terrified of disappointing people, so you work yourself to exhaustion. I know you haven't spoken to your mother in 3 months because she said your business was a waste of your potential, and it hurt too much to hear. I know you keep a photo of your grandmother in your wallet and touch it before every big event for luck. I know you're loyal and creative, and so convinced you're not enough that you can't see how extraordinary you actually are." Each observation landed like a physical blow. He had been paying attention, cataloging details she hadn't realized she'd revealed. "That doesn't give you the right to decide my future without telling me. No, it doesn't, which is why the invitations haven't been mailed." He pulled one from his jacket pocket, the same cream and gold she'd designed. "And why I'm here asking, really asking, if you'd consider this. Not because of a contract or an arrangement, but because somewhere in the past 6 months, I fell in love with you, and I'm hoping you feel something for me too." The confession hung in the air between them. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity. She wanted to cry at the sincerity in his voice. And she wanted to hit him for putting her in this position, where her anger was tangled up with longing, and her logic was fighting a losing battle against her heart. "You don't get to do this," she said quietly. "You don't get to lie for months, and then make a romantic confession and expect everything to be fine. I don't expect anything. I'm hoping, but I don't expect." He set the invitation on the dashboard. "I handled this wrong. I knew it was wrong even while I was doing it, but I convinced myself the ends would justify the means, that if we ended up happy together, the deception wouldn't matter. It matters. I know it does." He reached for her hand, then stopped himself. "I'm not asking you to marry me in March. I'm asking if you'd be willing to start over. Let me take you to dinner, like I should have done 8 months ago. Let me court you properly, with honesty this time. Let me prove that what's between us is real, and not just something I manufactured. And if I say no, then I pay you the remainder of your contract. You never have to see me again. And I spend the rest of my life regretting that I didn't dare to approach you honestly from the beginning. Zeph looked out at the water, watching the lights from the city reflect on the surface. 6 months ago, she'd been desperate enough to take a job from a stranger. Now she was sitting in a car with that stranger who'd just confessed he loved her, who'd built an elaborate lie because he was too scared to simply ask her to coffee. It was insane. It was manipulative. It was also the most honest he'd been with her since they met. "I need time," she said finally. "I need time to think without you watching me, waiting for an answer." "How much time?" "I don't know. A week, maybe more." He nodded slowly. "All right. I'll have the remainder of your payment transferred tomorrow. Consider it payment for the work you've already done, regardless of what you decide about us." "I don't want your money." "You earned it. 6 months of exceptional work deserve to be compensated." He started the car. "I'll take you back to your office." The drive back was silent, but different from the drive there. Less hostile, more melancholy. When he pulled up across from her building, she didn't get out immediately. "The wedding I planned," she said. "Was any of it real? Did you actually like any of my choices, or were you just humoring me?" "Every choice was perfect. You created something beautiful. Exactly what I would have wanted if I'd had the words to express it." He smiled sadly. "You're exceptionally talented at understanding what people need, even when they don't know themselves." She got out of the car and walked back to her office without looking back, though she felt his eyes on her until she disappeared inside. The week that followed was torture. Zeph threw herself into other work, taking on 3 small events she'd normally have passed to other planners. She needed the distraction, needed to focus on other people's celebrations instead of the impossible decision sitting in front of her. Her best friend Tessa showed up at her apartment on the 3rd day, carrying wine and takeout. "You've been dodging my calls. What happened with the big mysterious client?" Zeph had kept the job confidential like the contract required, but now that seemed pointless. She told Tessa everything, watching her friend's expression cycle through shock, anger, and reluctant fascination. "That's the most romantic and messed up thing I've ever heard," Tessa said when she finished. "He's either a criminal mastermind or the world's most committed romantic." "Both. Neither. I don't know." Zeph picked at her food. "Part of me wants to give him a chance. The part that noticed how he always brought me tea when I was stressed, how he remembered every small detail, how he looked at me like I mattered. And the other part knows that someone who lies that easily, even for good reasons, might lie again. That I'd spend our entire relationship wondering what else he's hiding." Tessa refilled their glasses. "Can I ask you something without you getting defensive?" "Probably not, but try anyway. When was the last time someone pursued you? Really pursued you? Not just swiped right and suggested drinks, but actually paid attention and made an effort?" Zeph opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. She'd had relationships, dated plenty, but none of them had felt like this. None of them had looked at her the way Minho did, like she was a puzzle worth solving and a prize worth winning simultaneously. "That's what I thought." Tessa squeezed her hand. "I'm not saying forgive him. What he did was objectively wrong. But maybe ask yourself if you're angrier about the method or scared about the feeling." After Tessa left, Zeph pulled out her laptop and looked at the wedding plans again. The venue, the flowers, the music, the menu. Every detail was something she'd love. He'd been listening, genuinely listening, even while deceiving her. She thought about his confession in the car, the vulnerability in his voice when he admitted he'd fallen in love with her, the way he'd offered her time and space instead of pressuring her for an immediate answer. Her phone buzzed. Not a call, just a notification. The remainder of her contract payment had been transferred, $250,000. He'd kept his word. There was no message with it. No plea for her to reconsider. No romantic gesture. Just the money he'd promised, and silence. Something about that silence bothered her more than his previous attention had. On the 5th day, she made a decision. She got dressed with care, wearing the navy dress she saved for important meetings, and drove to the address listed for Kang Consulting. The building was smaller than she'd expected, tucked between a restaurant and a law office, discreet to the point of invisibility. The reception area was minimal, just a desk and a young man who looked up when she entered. "I need to see Kong Minho." "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Tell him Zephyrin Bodden is here. He'll see me." The receptionist made a call, spoke quietly, then nodded. "5th floor. He'll meet you at the elevator." The elevator was small, older, the kind that groaned slightly as it rose. When the doors opened, Minho was standing there, surprise clear on his face. "Zeph, you said you wanted to start over, to do this honestly." She stepped out of the elevator. "So let's start. Show me who you really are, what you really do. No more secrets, no more careful wording. I want the truth about your family, your business, everything." He studied her for a long moment. "If I show you, you might run. Then I run. But at least I'll know what I'm running from." He led her down a hallway to an office that was surprisingly ordinary. Desk, filing cabinets, a window overlooking the street. Nothing that screamed organized crime or danger. "My family started in traditional organized crime 3 generations ago," he said, leaning against his desk. "Protection rackets, gambling, import-export businesses that weren't entirely legal. My grandfather wanted out, started transitioning to legitimate operations. My father continued that transition. By the time I took over 5 years ago, and we were 90% legal. And the other 10%? Information brokering. We know people, we know secrets, and sometimes people pay us to share that knowledge or keep it quiet. Nothing violent, nothing that harms innocents, but not exactly legal either. You're a blackmailer. I'm a consultant who specializes in sensitive information management." He met her eyes steadily. "I've never hurt anyone physically. I've never been arrested. I've never done anything that keeps me up at night with guilt. But yes, the foundation of my family's money came from illegal activities, and some of what we do still exists in gray areas. Why not go completely legitimate? Because complete legitimacy means losing protection. Some people remember what my family was, who would take advantage if they thought we were vulnerable. The connections we maintain, the information we have, it keeps us safe." Zeph walked to the window, looking down at the street. Normal people doing normal things, unaware that organized crime was being discussed 1 floor above them. "Your family, the ones who wanted you to marry someone they approved of, will they accept me?" "Eventually. Once they see you're not intimidated by them, once they realize you make me happy, they'll accept you." He moved closer, but didn't touch her. "But that's only relevant if you're actually considering this." She turned to face him. "I have conditions." Hope flickered across his expression. "Name them." "First, no more lies. Not white lies, not omissions, not careful wording. If I ask you something, I get the truth even if you think it'll hurt." "Agreed." "Second, we date normally for at least 6 months. Dinners, movies, meeting each other's friends and family. No wedding planning, no pressure. Just seeing if this is real." "Agreed." "Third, you get therapy. Someone who specializes in helping people from your background navigate relationships without manipulation." He blinked. "Therapy. You admitted you knew what you were doing was wrong, but did it anyway. That's a pattern that needs addressing if we're going to have any chance." She crossed her arms. "Non-negotiable. All right. I'll start looking for someone this week. Fourth, I want to meet your family. Not eventually. Not when it's convenient. Within the next month. I need to know what I'm potentially agreeing to be part of." That one might be more difficult. They're not easy people. I didn't ask if they were easy. I said I want to meet them. A slow smile spread across his face. You're terrifying when you're decisive. You have no idea." She felt her own lips twitch. "Last condition. The wedding I planned. We're not using any of it." His smile faded. "But you loved those plans." "I loved them when I thought they were for someone else, when there was no pressure attached. If we get to the point where we're actually getting married, we plan it together from scratch. Equal input, equal decisions." "That's fair." He took a careful step closer. "Are we really doing this? Are you really giving me a chance?" "I'm giving us a chance. Not you, us." She held up a finger when he moved closer again. "And we're taking it slow. No kissing, no romance. Just conversation and getting to know each other without all the wedding planning between us." "How slow are we talking?" "Glacial. I need to trust you again, and that's going to take time. I can do slow." But the way he was looking at her, like she'd just given him something precious and fragile, suggested slow was going to be difficult for both of them. "When's our first date?" she asked. "Tomorrow night. I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something comfortable." "Where are we going?" "That would be telling. And you said no more secrets." His smile turned playful. "But I promise it's nothing fancy. Just something I think you'll enjoy." She left his office feeling lighter and more terrified than she'd felt in months. She was really doing this. Dating a man with organized crime connections, Suk, whose idea of courtship had involved an elaborate, fake wedding. Her mother was going to lose her mind. The thought made her smile. Minho picked her up exactly at 7 the next evening, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, driving a different car than she'd seen before, something older and less flashy. "Borrowed it from a friend," he explained when he saw her looking. "Thought the usual vehicle might be intimidating." Thoughtful. "I'm trying." He drove them to a part of the city she didn't know well, parking near what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Zeph tensed. "Trust me," he said quietly. "I promise this is good." He led her around the building to a door with no sign, knocked 3 times. Someone opened it from the inside, and music spilt out. Live music. Jazz from the sound of it. Inside was a speakeasy-style venue, intimate and dimly lit, with a small stage where a quartet was playing. Maybe 30 people scattered at tables, drinks in hand, completely focused on the music. "How did you find this place?" she whispered. "I know the owner. They do live jazz every Friday night, real musicians. The kind who play because they love it, not because they're chasing fame." He guided her to a table near the back. "You mentioned once that you loved jazz, but never had time to actually go listen to it live." She had mentioned that months ago during one of their late-night planning sessions. They ordered drinks and listened to the music, not talking much, just existing in the same space. It was easy in a way their previous interactions hadn't been, without the weight of the wedding project between them. During a break between sets, Minho finally spoke. "Tell me about your grandmother, the one whose photo you carry." "She raised me while my mother was building her career, taught me how to cook, how to see beauty in ordinary things, how to trust my instincts." Zeph smiled at the memory. "She used to say that every day should have at least one beautiful moment, even if you had to create it yourself. That's part of why I became an event planner. Creating beautiful moments felt like honoring her." "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." She took a sip of her drink. "Tell me something real about you. Not business-related, not about your family. Just you." He thought for a moment. "I wanted to be a teacher when I was young, history specifically. I love the idea of helping people understand where they came from, so they could decide where they wanted to go." "Why didn't you?" "Family obligations. My father was sick. Someone needed to take over the business. By the time I was old enough to choose, the choice had already been made." No bitterness in his voice, just acceptance. "I don't regret it most days, but sometimes I wonder what that other life would have looked like. You could still teach, volunteer, mentor, something. Maybe." He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Having something to look forward to outside of work might be good. They stayed until the venue closed, listening to 3 full sets, talking during breaks about everything and nothing. Music, food, travel, childhood memories, dreams they'd abandoned, and ones they still carried. When he drove her home, he walked her to her door, but didn't try to kiss her, didn't even reach for her hand. "Same time next week?" he asked. "I'd like that. Good night, Zeph. Good night." She watched him walk back to his car, feeling something unfamiliar and hopeful taking root in her chest. The next month unfolded in a series of careful dates, coffee shops where they'd sit for hours debating books they'd read, a cooking class where they were terrible partners and burned 3 dishes, but laughed until they couldn't breathe, a volunteer day at a youth center where Minho helped kids with their homework, and she realized he would have made an excellent teacher. He told her about his childhood, growing up knowing his family was different, learning early to keep secrets and read people. She told him about the loneliness of being an only child to a distant mother, about building her business and watching it nearly fail, about the terror and thrill of betting everything on herself. They learned each other slowly, without the manufactured intensity of the wedding project between them. He started therapy like he'd promised, mentioning it casually over dinner one night. "It's harder than I expected, talking about why I do things, examining patterns I didn't realize I had." "Is it helping?" "I think so." She pointed out that I try to control situations when I'm scared of losing something important. Said it comes from growing up in chaos and needing to create order however I could. He met her eyes. She also said that real trust means letting go of control sometimes, letting things unfold naturally even when it's terrifying. "Your therapist sounds smart." "She is." She also asked if you'd be willing to come to a session sometime. "Not now, but eventually, if we keep moving forward." "I'd consider it." 6 weeks into their new arrangement, he took her to meet his family. The Kang family home was exactly what she expected, large and elegant, and slightly intimidating. Minho's mother answered the door herself, a petite woman with sharp eyes that cataloged everything about Zeph in 3 seconds. "So you're the event planner my son has been obsessed with?" "Mom," Minho said with warning in his voice. "What?" "It's true. He talks about you constantly." She stepped aside to let them in. "I'm Yoonji. Come in. Everyone's in the dining room pretending they're not curious." The dining room held 6 people, various aunts and uncles, and Minho's younger sister, all of whom stopped talking when they entered. The scrutiny was intense, but Zeph had faced down bridezillas and demanding clients. She could handle a family dinner. "Everyone, this is Zephyrine Bodden. Zeph, this is my family." Minho kept his hand on the small of her back, a light touch but grounding. Dinner was an interrogation disguised as polite conversation. They asked about her business, her background, her family, her intentions. She answered honestly, not trying to impress them, just presenting herself as she was. Minho's uncle, a man who radiated authority even while sitting, finally addressed her directly. "You know what this family is, what we've been. That doesn't concern you?" "It concerns me," she said calmly. "But I'm more interested in what you're becoming than what you were. Minho's been honest about the transition you're making. That takes courage. Or necessity. Often, they're the same thing." Something like approval flickered in his expression. His sister cornered her after dinner, while the men were in another room talking business. "He's different with you," she said. "Lighter. I haven't seen him this relaxed in years. We're still figuring things out. But you care about him. Not a question." "I'm starting to, yes." "Good. He deserves someone who sees him as more than the family name." She squeezed Zeph's arm. "Just know that if you hurt him, you'll have all of us to answer to." "Noted." On the drive home, Minho seemed surprised. "That went better than I expected. Did you think they'd hate me?" "I thought they'd intimidate you. Most people are either terrified or trying too hard to impress them. You just treated them like normal people. They are normal people, with an unusual background, but still just people trying to protect their family. She looked over at him. Your uncle threatened me very politely. I respected that. He laughed, genuine and warm. You're going to fit in perfectly. 2 weeks later, Zeph invited him to Sunday dinner with her mother. She'd called ahead, warned her mother she was bringing someone, endured the interrogation about who he was and what he did. She'd been vague on details. Knowing the full truth would send her mother into protective overdrive. Her mother lived in the same house Zeph had grown up in, a small craftsman with a garden that was her pride and joy. She answered the door, wearing her best dress, and the expression she reserved for people she was prepared not to like. Mom, this is Minho. Minho, my mother, Patricia. Mrs. Bodden, thank you for having me. He offered his hand and a warm smile. Her mother shook it briefly. Come in. Dinner's almost ready. The meal was tense. Her mother asked pointed questions about his work, his family, and his education. Minho answered everything honestly but carefully, not lying, but not offering more than asked. And what are your intentions toward my daughter? Mom, Zeph protested. It's all right. Minho set down his fork. I intend to spend as much time with her as she'll allow, to support her dreams and her business, to prove to her and to you that I'm worthy of her trust, and if she'll have me, eventually, to build a life together. Patricia studied him for a long moment. You heard her, and I don't care who your family is or what connections you have. I will make your life miserable. I'd expect nothing less. After dinner, while Minho was helping with dishes, Patricia pulled Zeph aside. He's hiding something. I know, Mom. I know about his family, his background, all of it. And you're okay with that? Zeph thought about the past 2 months, the careful honesty, the genuine effort he was making. I'm okay with who he's trying to be. People aren't just their worst moments or their family's history. They're also their choices. Her mother's expression softened slightly. You're happy. I can see it in your face. I'm cautiously optimistic. That's growth. She hugged Zeph, tight and brief. He seems decent. Just be careful. Always am. 3 months into dating, Minho took her back to the converted barn, the wedding venue she'd chosen all those months ago. They stood in the space, afternoon light streaming through the windows. I've been thinking about your condition, he said, about planning a new wedding together if we get to that point. And I think you were right. That wedding you planned was beautiful, but it was created under pretenses. If we're building a life together, everything should be honest from the start. He turned to face her. But I want you to know that every choice you made, I loved. The flowers, the colors, the music. You have extraordinary taste and an incredible ability to create beauty. Thank you. I'm not good at this, he continued. At relationships, at vulnerability, at letting someone see all the messy parts I usually keep hidden. But I'm trying. For you, I'm trying. She stepped closer, closing some of the careful distance she'd been maintaining. I know you are. I see it. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you still scared? Of this? Of me? Of what we're building? She considered lying, offering reassurance. But they'd promised honesty. Yes. I'm scared you'll fall back into old patterns. I'm scared your world will swallow me whole. I'm scared I'll wake up one day and realize I've lost myself trying to fit into your life. She took a breath. But I'm more scared of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. I'm scared too, he admitted. Terrified that I'll mess this up, that I'll hurt you without meaning to, that you'll realize you deserve better than someone with my baggage. Loving you might destroy me, she said quietly, but leaving you definitely will. The words hung in the air between them, the first time either had used the word love. He reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. "I know we agreed to take this slow," he said, "and I'll respect that as long as you need. But I need you to know that I love you. Completely. Terrifyingly, in ways I didn't know I was capable of. You make me want to be better. To do better." Her heart was racing, but she didn't let go of his hand. "I love you too, even though part of me thinks that makes me reckless and foolish. We can be reckless and foolish together." He leaned in slowly, carefully, watching her eyes for permission. When she didn't pull away, he kissed her. Soft and tentative, and nothing like she'd imagined. It was gentle, reverent, a promise more than a passion. When they broke apart, she was smiling. That was worth waiting for. 3 months of torture, but yes, completely worth it. He rested his forehead against hers. "Where do we go from here?" "Forward. Together. Still slow, still careful, but forward." "I can work with that." They stayed in that barn until sunset, talking about futures that were no longer hypothetical, about what a life together might look like, about the compromises they'd need to make, about the dreams they could build together. It wasn't the wedding she'd planned all those months ago. It was something better, something real, something chosen instead of manufactured. And for the first time since opening those invitations, Zeph felt like maybe, just maybe, the story would have a happy ending after all. The following months were a study in balance. Zeph learned to navigate Minho's world, the careful politics of family dinners, where every word carried weight, the business associates who assessed her with calculating eyes, the reality that privacy was a luxury and security was a necessity. He learned to exist in hers, attending networking events, where she introduced him simply as her partner, meeting her small circle of friends who were protective and skeptical, understanding that her business was her identity as much as his family was his. It wasn't always easy. 4 months into their relationship, Zeph got a call from a potential client, a high-profile celebrity wedding that could elevate her business to an entirely new level. The meeting went well until the client's manager pulled her aside. "We need to discuss your association with Kang Minho." Her stomach dropped. "I don't see how my personal life is relevant to planning your client's wedding." "It's relevant when your boyfriend's family has known ties to organized crime. Our client can't afford that kind of publicity." The manager's smile was apologetic, but firm. "If you want this job, the relationship needs to end, or at least appear to end publicly." She walked out of that meeting and sat in her car for 20 minutes, hands shaking on the steering wheel. This was the career opportunity she'd been working toward for years, the kind of wedding that would establish her reputation permanently, that would mean financial security and professional respect. All she had to do was walk away from Minho. She drove straight to his office, not calling ahead, just showing up and asking the receptionist to let her through. He took one look at her face and dismissed the person he was meeting with. "What happened?" She told him about the offer, the ultimatum, watching his expression close off in that way it did when he was protecting himself. "You should take it," he said quietly. "What?" "It's your career, your dream. I won't be the reason you lose opportunities." He sat on the edge of his desk, that careful control back in place. "We can figure out a way to make it look like we've broken up publicly, while still seeing each other privately." "So more lies? More deception?" "Necessary deception this time, for your benefit, not mine." "And what happens the next time? And the time after that?" Her voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. "How long do we hide before I resent you for it, or you resent me for needing to hide?" "I don't know, Zeph. I don't have answers for how to make this work without costing you things." She looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the guilt and resignation in his eyes. He thought he was poison, something that contaminated everything he touched. His therapist probably had a term for it, this belief that he didn't deserve good things without them coming at a cost. "I turned down the job," she said. His head snapped up. "What? When?" "In the parking lot before I came here. I called and told them I wasn't interested in working with people who made my personal life a condition of employment. Zeph, that's not... You can't just walk away from opportunities like that for me. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. She moved closer. I spent 2 years building a business on my own terms, refusing to compromise my values for success. I'm not starting now. If clients can't separate my professional skills from who I choose to love, they're not clients I want. You'll regret this. Maybe. Or maybe I'll book 10 smaller weddings that matter more. Maybe I'll build a reputation for integrity instead of celebrity connections. She reached for his hand. But I won't regret choosing you. Not when you're choosing to be better every day. Not when what we have is real. He pulled her close, holding her like she was something precious and breakable. I don't deserve you. Good thing that's not your decision to make. That night, lying in his apartment for the first time, she'd been spending more nights there than at her own place lately. She brought up something that had been on her mind. Tell me about the 10%. He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. There's a woman who comes to us every few months. Her ex-husband is wealthy, connected, and likes to use the court system to torment her. He files motions to reduce child support, threatens custody battles, makes her spend money on lawyers she doesn't have. His voice was flat, factual. We collect information on his business dealings, the things he doesn't want public, and we make it clear that if he continues harassing her, that information becomes public. Blackmail. Protection. He stops. She gets peace. We get paid. And if he doesn't stop, then we follow through. The information gets leaked to the right journalists or authorities, depending on what's most effective. Zeph processed this. How many clients like her do you have? Dozen or so at any given time. People who've exhausted legal options, who need leverage, they can't get through proper channels. We don't work for criminals, don't help people harm others, just even the playing field when it's tilted too far in the wrong direction. Robin Hood for the information age. Something like that. Though Robin Hood probably had fewer moral gray areas to navigate. She rolled onto her side to look at him. Does it bother you? The gray areas? Yes. Which is why I'm working to phase it out completely. Another 2 years, and we'll be entirely legitimate. I'm assuming I can convince some of our long-term clients to find alternative solutions. What happens to the people who need help if you stop? He smiled without humor. That's the question that keeps me doing it. How do I walk away knowing I could have helped someone who had no other options? You can't save everyone. I know. Doesn't make it easier to stop trying. They lay in comfortable silence, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady and sure. I want you to move in with me, he said suddenly. Not here. Somewhere new we choose together. Neutral ground that's ours, not mine or yours. That's a big step. We're already together most nights anyway. This just makes it official. He ran his fingers through her hair, gentle and soothing. But only if you're ready. On no pressure. She thought about her tiny studio apartment, about always packing bags to go between places, about how much easier it would be to have one space they shared. I have conditions. Of course you do. She could hear the smile in his voice. Equal split on rent and utilities. I'm not being financially dependent on you. Agreed. Though you realize I make significantly more than you, right? We could afford something nicer if we split proportionally to income. Equal split, she repeated firmly. I need to contribute equally, or I'll feel like I'm being kept. All right. What else? I want a space that's mine, office or studio, or just a room where my things are, and you don't reorganize or optimize or whatever controlling tendency you're working on in therapy. Fair. Same for me then. We each get our own space within our shared space. And we host Sunday dinners. Your family one week, mine the next. No more keeping our lives separate. That's going to be interesting. He kissed the top of her head. My mother and yours in the same room. Should I hire security? Probably. They started looking for apartments the next week, a process that revealed just how different their expectations were. He wanted modern and secure buildings with doormen, cameras, and controlled access. She wanted character and community, places with history and neighbors who actually spoke to each other. They compromised on a converted loft in a neighborhood that was transitioning, old industrial space made into living areas, high ceilings and exposed brick with updated security systems, and a doorman who was friendly instead of formal. Moving in together was a negotiation exercise. He had expensive taste and minimal possessions, everything carefully curated and organized. She had collected furniture and art and plants, things with stories and meaning, if not monetary value. They learned to blend their aesthetics, his clean lines, and her cozy comfort, creating something neither had expected, but both loved. The first Sunday dinner they hosted was controlled chaos. Zeph's mother arrived early and immediately started rearranging the kitchen to her preferences. Minho's mother arrived exactly on time, with enough food to feed 20 people instead of 8. The two women circled each other like generals assessing an opponent, polite but wary. His sister and Zeph's best friend, Tessa, hit it off immediately, bonding over embarrassing stories about their respective people. So his uncle and Zeph's mother found common ground in their shared skepticism about the relationship, sitting together and watching like hawks for signs of trouble. Minho navigated it all with the diplomatic skills he'd learned in business, making sure everyone had drinks, facilitating conversations, and playing mediator when tensions rose. Zeph watched him charm her mother, saw the exact moment Patricia's disapproval started to crack, when he asked about her garden and actually listened to the answer, offering suggestions based on his own interest in growing things she hadn't known he had. "You garden?" she asked later while they were cleaning up. "I used to. Had a rooftop space at my old apartment, but gave it up when I moved. Your mother was telling me about her tomatoes, and I realized I missed it. We have the balcony." "We do?" he smiled. "Think she'd help me start a container garden? Might be a good way to actually bond, instead of just coexisting politely." "You're scheming. I'm building bridges, there's a difference. Manipulating my mother with tomato plants. If it works, is it manipulation or just effective communication?" He pulled her close, arms around her waist. "I want her to like me, to trust that I'll take care of you even though we both know you don't need taking care of. Keep talking like that, and you might get lucky later." Noted and filed away for future reference. 6 months into living together, Zeph's business hit a rough patch. 2 major clients canceled within a week of each other, both citing budget concerns and leaving her with a significant gap in projected income. She'd been counting on those events to carry her through the slower winter season. She stressed for 3 days before Minho noticed, which was 3 days longer than it should have taken, given that they shared a bed and most meals. "Talk to me," he said over breakfast on the 4th day. "You've been distant, and I can't fix what I don't understand." She told him about the cancellations, the financial strain, the fear that her business might never achieve the stability she needed. "How much do you need to bridge the gap? I'm not asking you for money." "I didn't say you were asking. I'm offering." "No." She set down her coffee with more force than necessary. "We talked about this. I build my business on my own merit, not on your money or connections. It's not charity, and it's a loan, or better yet, an investment. I invest in your business, become a silent partner, profit when you profit. And if I fail, if the business goes under, then we learn and try something else. Zeph, you're good at what you do, exceptional even. But every business has rough patches, and there's no shame in accepting help. There is when that help comes from my boyfriend's questionably acquired fortune." The words came out harsher than she intended. He flinched like she'd hit him. Questionably acquired. Right. He stood, taking his plate to the sink. "Forget I offered." "Minho, I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. And you're not entirely wrong." He turned to face her. My money does come from my family's history, from things I'm not proud of, even if I wasn't directly involved. But I'm trying to use it for good now, and offering to help someone I love succeed doesn't seem like the worst application. I need to do this myself. Why? Why does it have to be entirely on your own? Why can't you let people who care about you help carry the weight sometimes? Because everyone I've ever depended on has let me down eventually. My father left. My mother was never emotionally available. My business partner screwed me over. She felt tears threatening and hated herself for it. I need to know I can survive on my own because someday I might have to. Understanding crossed his face. You think I'll leave? I think people leave. It's what they do. I'm not going anywhere, Zeph. Not unless you send me away. You can't promise that. I can, and I do. I'm not perfect. I'll make mistakes. I'll probably do things that hurt you without meaning to. But I won't leave. That's a choice I make every day, and will keep making. She wanted to believe him. Part of her did believe him. But the scared part, the part that had been disappointed too many times, couldn't quite accept that this happiness was permanent. I need some air, she said, grabbing her jacket. Zeph, wait. But she was already out the door, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, moving fast like she could outrun the vulnerability threatening to swallow her whole. She walked for hours, through neighborhoods she didn't know, not really seeing anything, just moving because standing still meant feeling everything she was trying to avoid. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from Minho, but she couldn't bring herself to look at them. It was dark when she finally went home, expecting him to be angry or gone or something. Instead, he was in the kitchen cooking, her favorite meal from the restaurant they'd gone to on their third date, the one she'd mentioned loving weeks ago. You remembered, she said quietly from the doorway. I remember everything you tell me. He didn't turn from the stove. There's wine on the counter if you want it. Dinner's almost ready. She poured 2 glasses, set one next to him, kept the other. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I pushed. Your independence is one of the things I love most about you. I shouldn't try to compromise it, even when I think I'm helping. I'm terrified, she admitted, of needing you too much, of building a life I can't sustain without you, of forgetting how to be just me instead of us. He turned off the stove, finally looked at her. Well, what if needing someone doesn't make you weak? What if it just makes you human? What if they leave anyway? Then you survive, like you've survived everything else life has thrown at you. But you don't avoid connection just because it might hurt eventually. That's not living. That's just existing safely. She set down her wine glass, moved closer. Your therapist taught you that. That one's all me, though she did help me understand that I push people away before they can reject me, which is probably similar to what you're doing now. We're both disasters. We're both trying. That counts for something. She kissed him then, tasting wine and apology and promise. He responded carefully, letting her control the depth and duration, his hands gentle on her waist. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. I don't want your money. But maybe I could use your advice. Business advice, strategy, how to navigate the lean times. I can do that. And maybe I could try trusting that you'll stay. Not perfectly, not without fear, but trying. That's all I'm asking for. Just keep trying. With me. They ate dinner sitting on the floor of their living room, like they'd done when they first moved in, and didn't have furniture yet, talking through her business challenges, him offering suggestions that were actually helpful instead of just throwing money at the problem. You're diversifying too much, he said, trying to be everything to everyone instead of specializing in what you're exceptional at, which is intimate events with cultural significance. The weddings where you're blending traditions, the anniversary parties that honor heritage, the celebrations that mean something beyond just being expensive and pretty. Those are smaller, less profitable, but more consistent. And they build the kind of reputation that leads to referrals and loyalty. He refilled her wine. What if you repositioned your entire business around that? Became the go-to planner for culturally sensitive, meaningful events, instead of just another wedding planner competing on the same level as everyone else. The idea sparked something in her mind, possibilities unfolding. I'd need to rebuild my marketing, my portfolio presentation, everything. You'd need to get clear on your message and commit to it. But yes, some rebuilding. He smiled. Good thing you're excellent at creating beautiful things from scratch. She spent the next 3 weeks overhauling her business strategy, with Minho offering feedback when asked, but never pushing. She rebranded Bodden & Co., shifting her focus to heritage celebrations and multicultural events, highlighting her ability to honor tradition while creating contemporary experiences. The first inquiry under her new branding came from a Nigerian-Korean couple who'd been struggling to find a planner who understood both cultures. Zeph met with them and knew within 20 minutes that this was exactly the kind of work she was meant to do. She booked them, then 2 more similar events within a month. Smaller budgets than the celebrity wedding she'd turned down, but more fulfilling, more authentic to who she was and what she valued. I think you were right, she told Minho one night while reviewing her updated business plan. About specializing. I've booked more events in the past month than I did in the 3 months before. You were right too, about needing to do it your way, building something that reflects your values. He looked up from his own work. I'm proud of you. The simple statement hit harder than it should have. Her mother had never said those words, too focused on what Zeph wasn't doing to acknowledge what she was accomplishing. Thank you, she managed around the sudden tightness in her throat. He crossed to where she sat, pulled her up into his arms. I love you. Not for what you achieve or how successful you are, but for who you are. The stubborn, brilliant, beautiful woman who rearranges furniture when she's anxious and listens to Nina Simone when she works late and believes everyone deserves at least one perfect moment. I love you too, even though you're controlling and secretive and come with more baggage than an airport carousel. We're quite a pair. The worst, she kissed him softly. Want to be disasters together for the foreseeable future? Nothing I'd rather be. 8 months into living together, Minho came home from a meeting, looking shaken in a way she'd never seen. He poured himself a drink, something he rarely did, and stood at their window, looking out at the city. What happened? She asked, setting aside her work. My uncle was arrested. Federal charges, racketeering and extortion. He took a long drink. They're investigating the entire family, freezing assets, pulling records. It's the kind of thing we've been trying to avoid for years. Her heart sank. Are you implicated? I don't know yet. Maybe. Did some of the charges go back to when I first took over? Things I knew about even if I wasn't directly involved. He turned to face her. This could get ugly, Zeph. Media attention, legal battles, potentially criminal charges. If you want to distance yourself, I'd understand. Do you want me to distance myself? No. God, no. But I don't want to drag you into this either. She went to him, took the glass from his hand, set it aside. Remember when you promised you weren't going anywhere? That works both ways. I'm not running because things got complicated. This is more than complicated. This could destroy everything I've built, everything my family has tried to become. Then we deal with it together. You get a lawyer, you cooperate with investigators if you're clean, you fight if you're not. She cupped his face in her hands. But you don't face it alone. The investigation consumed the next 4 months. Minho spent hours with lawyers, turned over documents, gave statements. The media picked up the story, dragging the Kang family name through speculation and old accusations. Zeph's business took a hit, clients quietly canceling or postponing, clearly uncomfortable with the association. She wanted to be angry at them, but mostly she was just tired. Tired of defending her choices, tired of the scrutiny, tired of watching Minho blame himself for circumstances beyond his control. His mother called her one afternoon, asking to meet for coffee. They'd developed a cordial relationship but weren't close, so the invitation was surprising. "Thank you for staying," Yoonji said without preamble once they were seated. "So for not abandoning him when things became difficult. I love him. That doesn't come with conditions. Many people's love does. I've seen it repeatedly in our family. People who claim to care, but disappear when association becomes costly." She studied Zeph with those sharp eyes. "You've lost business because of him. I've lost clients who were never really mine to begin with. The ones who value my work over gossip have stayed. Still, it costs you to be with him. It costs him to be with me too. I'm not easy. I'm stubborn and independent, and I have my own baggage." Zeph met her gaze steadily. Relationships aren't transactions where everything has to be perfectly balanced. Sometimes one person needs more support, sometimes the other does, and it evens out if you're committed for the long term. Something like approval crossed Yoonji's face. "He wants to marry you. Asked his father and me for our blessing last month." Zeph's heart stuttered. "He did?" "Said he was waiting for the investigation to conclude. Didn't want to ask you while everything was uncertain. Wanted you to choose him without the pressure of a proposal hanging over everything." Yoonji smiled slightly. "But I thought you should know. When he does ask, he'll mean it completely. The Kong men love once and forever. That's a lot of pressure. It's also a promise. Consider it carefully when the time comes." After Eunji left, Zeph sat in the coffee shop for another hour, processing this information. Minho wanted to marry her, was planning to propose once the investigation ended. The knowledge sat warm and terrifying in her chest. Did she want to marry him? Sign up for a life that would always involve complexity, scrutiny, the legacy of his family's past? Commit legally and permanently to someone whose world was so different from what she'd imagined for herself? Yes, the answer came without hesitation. Yes, she wanted exactly that. 2 weeks later, the investigation concluded. Minho was cleared of all charges. Several family members, including his uncle, were indicted, but the evidence showed Minho had been actively working to eliminate illegal activities from their operations. The prosecutors actually cited his cooperation and the documentation he'd kept as evidence of good faith efforts to reform. The news broke on a Friday. By Sunday, Minho had shut himself in his office, emerging only for necessities, and clearly processing something he couldn't or wouldn't share. Zeph gave him space for 3 days before she'd had enough. She knocked on his office door, didn't wait for permission before entering. He looked exhausted, papers scattered everywhere, laptop open to what looked like financial documents. "Talk to me," she said, sitting on his desk. "You're cleared. Your family is transitioning away from anyone still involved in illegal activities. This is good news. So why do you look like the world is ending?" "Because it cost everything. My uncle's in jail. 3 cousins are facing charges. The family business lost half its value because of the investigation. We're legitimate now, but we're also fractured and diminished. You're free. That's not nothing. I'm free, and my family hates me for it. They think I cooperated too willingly, that I sold them out to save myself. Did you? I cooperated because it was the right thing to do, because some of what they were doing was wrong, and I was tired of pretending otherwise." He leaned back in his chair. "But it still feels like betrayal, like I chose outsiders over blood. You chose the future over the past. That's different. Tell that to my mother, who won't return my calls." Zeph pulled out her phone, dialed Yoonji's number. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Mrs. Kang, it's Zephyrin. Your son thinks you hate him for cooperating with the investigation. I told him that was ridiculous, but he won't believe me. Would you mind telling him yourself?" She put the phone on speaker. Yoonji's sigh came through clearly. "I don't hate you, Minho. I'm disappointed in your uncle, angry at the situation, grieving for what our family has lost. But I'm also proud of you for having the courage to do what needed doing, even when it was painful. "You haven't called," Minho said quietly, "because I didn't know what to say. How to apologize for the position we put you in, for making you choose between loyalty and integrity." Her voice cracked slightly. "Your father and I are proud of you. We should have said that immediately. I'm sorry we didn't. Mom, come to dinner tomorrow. Bring Zephyrine. We'll talk properly, as a family." After she hung up, Minho looked at Zeph with something like wonder. "You just called my mother and demanded she reassure me. She loves you. She just needed a push to show it." Zeph hopped off the desk. "Now come to bed. You've been in here long enough. Bossy. You love it." He pulled her close. He held her tight. "I really do." The family dinner the next night was emotional, uncomfortable, and necessary. Apologies were made, resentments aired, boundaries established. Minho's sister cried. His father made a speech about new beginnings that was surprisingly touching. His mother hugged Zeph and whispered, "Thank you." It wasn't perfect. Families like theirs didn't do perfect. But it was honest. It was healing. And it was a start. 3 days later, Minho took Zeph back to the jazz club where they'd had their first real date. The same quartet was playing, the same intimate atmosphere. They sat at the same table in the back, ordered the same drinks. During the break between sets, he reached across the table and took her hand. "I need to tell you something." "All right." "When I first saw you at that wedding, so when I created this elaborate plan to get close to you, I thought I was being romantic. Clever, even. It took me months to understand it was just another form of control. Another way of trying to manufacture an outcome instead of trusting the process. We've been through this. I forgave you. I know. But I need to do this right this time. No manipulation, no elaborate schemes. Just honesty." He took a breath. "Zephyrine Bodden, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever met. You've made me want to be better, do better, choose better. You've stood by me through investigations and family drama and my own emotional unavailability. You've called me on my patterns and loved me anyway." He slid off his chair, kneeling beside the table, pulling a small box from his pocket. Her breath caught. "I'm not asking you to marry me in March at a wedding you planned without knowing it was yours. I'm asking if you'll spend the rest of your life with me, building something real together, facing whatever comes as partners. Will you marry me?" The ring was simple, elegant, exactly her taste, in ways the wedding she'd planned had been. Because he knew her now, really knew her, not just the preferences he'd catalogued, but the person behind them. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring on her finger, stood, and pulled her into his arms, kissing her, while the jazz club erupted in applause around them. The quartet started playing, something soft and romantic, and couples moved to the small dance floor. "Dance with me," Minho said, leading her to join them. They swayed together, her head on his chest, his arms around her, the rest of the world fading to background noise. "I can't believe you proposed in the same place as our first date," she murmured. "Full circle. Seemed appropriate." He kissed the top of her head. "Though I'm open to suggestions on the actual wedding. Equal partners, equal input, remember? I might have some ideas." "I'm counting on it." They stayed until closing, dancing and talking about futures that were no longer hypothetical, about the wedding they'd planned together, the life they'd build, the family they might create, about challenges they'd face and joys they'd share. It wasn't the fairy tale Zeph had imagined as a girl. It was better, messier, more real. It was two broken people choosing each other every day, doing the work to build something lasting. When they finally left the jazz club, walking to his car hand in hand, Zeph looked at the ring on her finger and smiled. "What are you thinking?" Minho asked. "That I'm glad you were terrible at approaching women 8 months ago. If you'd just asked me to coffee like a normal person, I might have said no. Really? Probably not. But the story is better this way. The event planner in you appreciating narrative flow. The woman in me appreciating that our love story is ours. Unconventional and imperfect, and exactly right. He stopped walking, pulled her close, kissed her under the streetlight like they were in a movie. I love you, Zeph Bodden. Soon to be Zeph Kong if you want. Or Zeph Bodden Kang. Or just staying Bodden. Whatever you choose. I love you too. And I'm keeping Bodden professionally, so maybe hyphenating personally. My mother would kill me if I dropped the family name entirely. Fair enough. They drove home to their loft, the space they'd chosen together, filled with his clean lines and her cozy comfort. Home in a way neither had experienced before. Not a place but a person. The safety of being known completely and loved anyway. Zeph called Tessa first thing the next morning, squealing into the phone like a teenager instead of a professional business owner. He proposed. I'm engaged. About time. I've been waiting months for him to get his act together. Tessa's joy came through clearly. Tell me everything. Don't leave out a single detail. They talked for an hour, Zeph describing the proposal, the ring, the conversation about their future. It felt real saying it out loud, a permanent in a way that made her heart race with excitement instead of fear. Minho called his family, enduring his mother's happy tears and his sister's demands to be involved in wedding planning. His father made a joke about finally making an honest woman of her, which earned him a swat from Yoonji. Zeph's mother cried when she heard, genuine happy tears that surprised them both. I'm proud of you, baby girl. You found someone worthy of you. Thanks, Mom. Though if he hurts you, I know people who know people. Mom, his family is literally the Mafia. You can't out-threaten them. Watch me. Planning the wedding together was everything the first time hadn't been. They argued about flowers. She wanted wildflowers, and he wanted roses. They compromised on both. They debated venues, eventually choosing a small garden instead of the barn she'd selected before. They fought about the guest list. His family was massive, and hers was tiny. They worked out a balance. It was frustrating and fun and perfectly them. 4 months into planning, Zeph got a call from the celebrity whose wedding she'd turned down a year earlier. I heard you got engaged. Congratulations. Thank you. I also heard you're doing incredible work with multicultural events. My manager was an idiot for making you choose between your career and your relationship. I'd like to hire you for my vow renewal if you're interested. The offer was generous, apologetic, everything she'd wanted a year ago. I appreciate that, but I'm actually booked solid for the next 8 months. However, I can recommend another planner who does excellent work. She referred the celebrity to a colleague, someone who'd helped her out during her lean times, paying forward the support she'd received. After hanging up, she felt nothing but satisfaction. She didn't need that client anymore, didn't need external validation of her worth. Her calendar was full of events that mattered to her. Her business was thriving on her terms. Her life was full of love and purpose. The wedding took place on a Saturday in May, nearly a year and a half after that first mysterious email offering her an impossible job. It was small, just 70 guests, a mix of both families and close friends. The garden was perfect, wildflowers and roses coexisting beautifully. A string quartet played a mix of classical and R&B, just like she'd originally planned. But this time, she walked down the aisle, knowing exactly who waited for her, choosing this moment instead of discovering it by accident. Minho cried when he saw her, not bothering to hide the tears. His vows were simple and honest. You've made me braver and better. You've shown me that love doesn't require control, just commitment. I promise to choose you every day, to be honest, even when it's hard, to support your dreams while building our own. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've given me. Hers were equally simple. You've taught me that needing someone doesn't make me weak. It makes me human. That independence and partnership can coexist. I promise to keep trying, to push past my fear of abandonment, to believe in our future even when I'm scared. I promise to love you through the mess and the beauty and everything in between." They kissed as husband and wife while their families cheered. Two people who'd found each other through deception and chose each other through honesty. At the reception, Zeph danced with her mother, who held her tight and whispered that she was sorry for not believing sooner. Minho danced with his mother, who told him his grandmother would have loved Zeph. The best man, Minho's childhood friend, gave a speech about how love changes people for the better. The maid of honor, Tessa, gave a speech about how Zeph had always been extraordinary, and Minho was lucky she'd given him a chance. As the night wound down, Zeph and Minho snuck away to a quiet corner of the garden, stealing a moment alone. "We did it," she said, leaning against him. "We did. Some planned a wedding together without killing each other. Marriage should be easy in comparison. Or it'll be even more challenging, and we'll figure it out as we go. Probably that one." He kissed her softly, tasting like champagne and promise. "No regrets?" "Not a single one." "You?" "Just that I didn't meet you sooner. But then again, maybe we both needed to become who we are before we could appreciate what we found." "When did you become so wise?" "Therapy and loving you. Turns out both are incredibly educational." They returned to their reception, danced until their feet hurt, celebrated with the people who mattered most. And when they finally left, driving away to start their honeymoon and the rest of their lives, Zeph looked back at the garden one last time. She'd planned the most beautiful wedding of her career, after all. Not the one she'd designed in deception, but the one she'd created in truth. Not for a stranger's arrangement, but for her own love story. And it was absolutely perfect. From a mysterious client to the love of her life, from manipulation to real commitment, Zeph and Minho's story proves that sometimes the wrong beginning can lead to the right ending. Would you have given him a second chance after discovering the truth? Or is trust once broken impossible to rebuild? Drop your honest thoughts below.